Live. No, there we're live. Right on. I'm
Let's
so
go.
excited for today's show. Although it's not a super unusual show. We just Joey and I were early today, and usually we're both like scrambling. It was nice to be a minute ahead of the curve. Okay, let's go through the deep news. Top of the hops is Onocoy. They just had their monthly AMA, and the recap there, if you missed it, was that TGE is delayed but coming. Pretty exciting stuff there. They talked about a bunch of the business partnerships. So just like any good DePIN, building actual real business partnerships, shipping stuff, and they've got some tech updates. Just good to see them cruising through that. In anyone land, their exit rewards are live. 10% of all rewards are set to go to exit flagged relays. Before you go into your admin and flag your relay as an exit point, make sure you know what you're doing. If you don't know what that means, you don't know what you're doing, don't fucking do it. Maybe I dropped an F-bomb in the first minute. Yeah, I did. So that screws the whole fucking thing up. Well, whatever. In any event, don't go goddamn putting exit flag on your relay node if you don't know what you're doing, because yeah, that could cause some serious problems for you. So make sure you know what's going on. If you don't know what that means, don't do it. In Helium Land, let's see, we got a bunch of big news here. Some of the stuff, Joey may just turn his camera off or keep quiet like he's been doing. But the uncontroversial piece is there's a mobile app update. So make sure that if you're on Helium Mobile, you go through and update your app. I don't know why I have such a problem updating apps. I always assume they'll just update automatically, but this sounds so stupid. The way to do it if you have an iPhone is you go into your app store, look for the Helium mobile app and hit update if it hasn't updated yet. I feel like I'm explaining something to a 30-year-old when I
Yeah,
shouldn't be.
it'll get there eventually.
Yeah. Let's see. The final phase of the April 2025 Helium Release Proposal (HRP). Are these? I feel like I'm out of the loop, but that's complete. Nothing that you need to do. Just know that Helium Foundation and Helium in general is shipping. And then this is the part that I wanted to make sure we addressed, because this was a little bit, I don't know if I'd call it a bombshell, but it caused some consternation at one of the recent Helium calls. Is there's a piece where Helium Foundation employees were actually working for Nova Labs. It wasn't super clear that was happening. I'll give you my take on this, and this is without any insider information. This is just what I think happened. My guess is that Nova Labs saw a giant lawsuit coming. Those things usually aren't a surprise. And they made that move in order to protect employees and the ecosystem in general. Again, that's just my guess. I'm not like a legal dude, but I would like to make sure that from my perspective, this seems like something not totally optimal, but also probably super practical. I haven't seen anyone at Nova act against the interests of LoRaWAN system or Helium in general, but it may be that sometimes it's not exactly the way we want or as transparent as we'd all like. I don't think it's that big of a deal, or as big of a deal as it made. I know for some folks, it was a shock and it seemed like a betrayal of trust. I can see that perspective, but I think I've been there as long as, well, maybe certainly not as long as Germ, because Germ was there at the very beginning, but long enough to have seen that, hey, sometimes these guys don't act in the way that we would like them to. But I've yet to see Amir or anyone at the Nova team or anyone in Helium Foundation act against the interests of the actual ecosystem as a whole. So I'll put it out there. Let's see. Good to see everybody. 619, Siegfried, Keenan. Siegfried, yeah, hit the likes. I guess you probably should hit the likes. Fuck it. Hit them. And then with 619 OTA Android, you got to open and close the app to be mapping it. That's right. That was the reason for doing the app update, is to make sure you continue to get your rewards there. Let's see. I've got Hivemapper next. They just did this, what was it? A DePIN versus bear markets discussion on X. If you're into that stuff, I think it's worth watching. I think, Max Gold, my partner over at Gold Hawks, and I talked about this the other day, is that our our perspective is that DePIN and crypto is going to turn around. When it does, it'll be batshit crazy. Until then, you should be building. There's nothing else that you need to do. I wouldn't worry about markets. I mean, that's not financial advice. You can do whatever it is you want, but I'm not going to, I'm not bailing out of this thing. I think it's just, you got to be able to outlast it. And that's the deal. Over in Wi-Fi Dabba land, what is it? What do they announce? I should put my glasses on so I can read my own notes. You can buy a Dabba hotspot using BONK. Um, I think that's slightly ridiculous to be doing any more shit in crypto and not be building, but the Dabba team is really good about putting out good updates. So I think that's just a funny thing. In demo land, we talked a little bit last week about some DPL thing I didn't understand, still don't understand it, but I did like to see, I'm psyched to see actually right after the SotN today, the State of the Network today, they'll be on X talking about the smart cities push with M2M, which is machine to machine communication. I think that's really cool. The folks at DIMO are super smart. I think that's going to be great. In Wingbits, and I think that's the title of the show. I always liked Wingbits. I thought it was cool because it was the ability to like use my helium knowledge for a new project. But you can now see the first data points from the SpireGlobal satellite. Go on X to check out their account. The visualization there is pretty cool. And you can see, this was my takeaway, you can see like the kind of coverage a satellite has and doesn't have. So that was kind of cool. It looked like right over the middle of North America, there's like a nice big stripe that was super dense. And then in other places, there were other stripes that were semi-dense. And then there was nothing for the rest of it. So, I mean, hopefully this is no surprise. One satellite doesn't cover the world. But pretty cool to see that happening. In Spexi land, they just released, and I misspelled this, or my fucking Apple retyped it for me, but it's not the Specs demand referral program, it's the Spexi, and it's $200 a lead. So if you know someone who needs imagery and you manage to refer them to Spexi, and I'm sure if it goes through, you don't just get this for doing nothing, you'll get $200 a lead. That's pretty cool. Good to see that crypto projects are using standard affiliate referral commission programs to grow. I think that's a proven and decent way to grow. And then in WeatherXM, I actually got an email the other day from one of my paragliding peeps, from Gavin McClurg over at the Red Rocks Wide Open, which is an annual paragliding adventure race in Utah. And they had a bunch of sponsors on there. And I was like, dude, WeatherXM should be a sponsor of that thing. So I got to go talk to Manos about being a sponsor for it. But they did have a cool thing on 100 WeatherXM stations revealing London weather, which I would say is uniformly bad, except in August when it's pretty nice. And the big takeaway there is that if you go to London and you want to be cool, go into the parks, live in the parks. That's not a an exhortation to be homeless, but the parks are nicer there. Let's see. In Metsailand, I'm behind by, well, I'm not behind yet, but I will be behind at the end of the week if I don't launch podcasts. The audio editor doing the launching is, he goes on tour for some fucking super big bands. And the first like 5 days of him going on tour, he's smashed busy. And that happened to coincide with the launch of the podcast. So when I thought I'd have an episode out yesterday, I probably want to have it out until tomorrow. We'll sort that out. I've got, as Joey says, 5 or 6 in the can. So yeah, there's a bunch coming out, including what was my, I mean, I've got like every single one is my favorite, but I just got off a call with Slaven over at Glamos. We'll talk a bunch about that. I thought that was pretty cool to go through and see how this LoRaWAN field testing device kind of launched almost accidentally into the Helium land. And so Slaven had to pivot as like a full LoRaWAN professional into like these batshit crazy crypto people and service folks who didn't know anything about LoRaWAN. So that was, yeah, there it is. There's my in the can. Kevin asked me not to call out the shirts this time. I know he's traveling and super busy, so I'll just say that Flywheel System is raising DePIN and Web3. Do I have their thing? I don't have the shirts thing. Raising Deep in Web3 awareness. Check them out at the link at the bottom. And then I've got some nerd news, and I don't have a slide for this yet, but I've got a little emoji for it down in the description. I've been working on building this machine learning and LLM spam filter. I guess I can put that on Metsai. So what I'm doing is I have downloaded all of the emails I've got in my personal Gmail account since 2023, which is about 3,000. There's 100,000 emails total in that account because I've had it for a long, long time. And I was going to download all 100,000, and then I was talking with Grok, and I was like, you don't need that. Only the last couple thousand will be good. But I want to build this spam filter because I'm getting fucking swamped in spam. So that's, I think that's my news. Joey, what do you want to talk about? Thanks for listening.
Great. Yeah. I just let it wash all over me.
Yeah. Yeah. The craziness of DePIN crushing.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, no, I mean, well, speak a little bit on the craziness of Deepin. I think also happened last week was Mike from GeoNet was testifying in front of Congress. And so there was I think it was a friendly crowd, but it was pretty cool to see somebody, talk really intelligently around deep in and then always, I forget about this, but like speaking at that, like as you would talk to somebody that's never heard about this before level. And so really breaking things down at this base layer and talking about the utility and why this matters and not getting too heavy on, all the technical stuff like I like to do. Um, so I actually watched that. This is a long, C-SPAN style. like everything
Oh,
in there,
badass! I'll have to
nothing
go check that
touched.
out. I
So,
think he'd be a
yeah.
good good spokesman for DePIN because he certainly knows what he's doing on the tech side. That guy goes deep. He speaks. I don't know if you knew this. He speaks fluent Chinese.
Oh, wow.
And he goes over there, and I remember being in a cab one time with him. We were when I was doing some GeoNet stuff. We were going out from the Denver airport to one of the shows out in Denver, and we were talking about the geopolitical situation. He's got a really interesting take on it. He's a very, very practical dude. Yeah, good to see that he's out in front of Congress.
Yeah, no, it was a good showing. Definitely like a friendly audience. I think everyone that was
Cool,
in the room with them was generally pro crypto, so
nice.
softballs all around. But
Yeah,
it's good to see that stuff happening
yeah,
regardless.
for sure. Let's see. April 2nd, 619 got a huge spike in data, like 100 MBs. Uh, 5 to 10 megabytes
That's
a day in data. Okay. Was that Joey? Was that you doing that? Are you sending data to 619
well,
in San Diego?
that's not an IoT hotspot at 100
No.
megabytes. So,
Yeah.
um,
They don't do
but
megabytes, right? Let's
I
see.
mean that's probably a mobile hotspot, and then somebody used it. I don't know, your Amazon delivery guy or whoever. Like it's
Crushing.
out there.
Is
Yeah.
Amazon on mobile now? Is that like some top secret thing that you shouldn't have dropped?
Oh no, no, that's not. I mean, like what's that program called? The anyone can drive for it. You just use your phone. So
Oh no shit. Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't know. Let's see. Let me see if I can change the color on the background here so it's a little bit easier to see. I'll probably screw this up. What's going on? Neil, what are you talking about with network being used? Is this something that I missed?
Oh,
Here
he
we
was just
go.
talking about uh 619 getting data.
Got it. Okay.
Um, yeah, Flex is the thing. I mean, if that's an IoT hotspot, I'd be curious to see the name of it. Take a look. But
Amazon
I
Flex.
don't. I think maybe something's being displayed wrong or you're reading wrong. 5 to 10 megabytes in a day would be a little nuts. So,
Huh. He says it's IoT, so
right. Yeah, yeah, we'll look at it.
yeah, we'll
Um,
dig in. What's up, Jay? I think
yeah.
Jay was just in Vegas at one of my favorite places in the world. Was it Red Rock? I always get corrected on this. It's either Red Rock or Red Rocks, but the state park there is a. I don't think it's a national park. Super cool place to cruise around and hang out.
Yeah, I got to visit there a while back. It was awesome hike. It was so windy though. Um,
Yeah, I
I
took
don't know if that's
Max out
normal,
there.
but
I think one of our first like joint trips as a Gold Hawks team was to Vegas. I think for CES. So it was like a January thing. And I had flown in. I think Max was there the day before because he found some super janky hotel to stay at that was cheaper than flying in the same day I did. So I did that. Have I told this story before, Joey?
mm-mm,
No, Max is
not.
he's a young hard charger. So I'm like the as funny as it sounds to me, I'm like the grizzled little bear, and he's like the young pup that's crushing. So he goes in there and he goes out and has probably more than a couple drinks the night before. And I fly in that morning, and I'm like all bright eyed, bushy tail because I love the mornings. And it's I think like 7 o'clock when I land. So I get in and I call him immediately. I was like, Max, what's going on, dude? Let's go for a hike. And he like barely answered the phone, super groggy, clearly hungover. And I had one of my buddies from the Navy who lives up there. This guy Vinny, and Vinny was picking me up. I'm like, me and Vinny are gonna be there in like 15 minutes. He's like, I'm not going. I'm like, no, Max, you're fucking going. So he dragged him out of the one of the worst hotels I've ever seen people stay at and took him up to Red Rocks. And I think he was still a little bit drunk and dragged him through a pretty ripping little trail hike, but it was windy and rainy and all the things that you wouldn't expect Vegas to be one of our
Oh, wow.
memorable moments. So,
Yeah. Huh.
oh, yeah,
Um, oth-
there it is.
yeah, I was still speculating. Yeah, there you go. Red Rock National Conservation Area.
In Red Rock
Um,
Canyon. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
other other fun news from last week. What I think I can't. I think this was last week, but the WBA is the consortium that's been driving. This is the Wireless Broadband Alliance.
Hmm.
They're largely the consortium that's driving Passpoint. It's the protocol that we use to make all of the Helium mobile hotspots work. The Nova Labs Helium core team is part of it. We drive panels and boards and things like that
Hmm.
around making this stuff better. It's where the metric service comes in, all this cool stuff we're doing. Um, but Verizon joined it like I think that was announced last week, if I'm remembering the timelines correctly, which is a pretty awesome signal around, more of these MNOs getting on board with Passpoint and carrier offload through that model. And I think sort of sets a really nice roadmap for thinking about the sort of whole set of MNOs and seeing this scale more broadly globally. Um, yeah, we talked about yeah, so that was Thursday then, I think, when that would have come out. We're talking
Okay.
about it Thursday. Um, but that's a cool thing to see. That's like one of those little sleeper macro things that happens that really, sets the path.
Let's see if I get this fucking thing done. So explain that a little bit more to me, Joey, because I missed. So WBA is not a crypto thing
Nope,
at all. But the
no.
implication here is that
Well,
Nova is part of it.
they're
Good.
yeah, I mean they're crypto friendly. Like
Oh,
we're a part of it. We talk about that. Like there's interest in, leveraging crypto rails for settlement, things like that. Because you've got all this money moving around, people paying for data. Um, but yeah, the WBA, you can think of them just like the Bluetooth consortiums or whatever. They're
yep.
or the Lower Alliance, right? It's the same model. So you have a panel of people. There's some governance systems. They write the specifications. They publish them. They advocate all that fun stuff. So
Huh. Okay.
that's where the big stuff happens in the
And
world of Passpoint.
so Verizon joined them, and then I guess the is it the implication there is that at some point Verizon could be like, oh, cool, we've heard about this crazy Helium thing. Maybe we'll start doing some Passpoint stuff with them, and Helium mobile hotspot owners might have Verizon traffic running through them. Or am I misinterpreting that?
I mean, that's a possible future path. Like obviously, zero guarantees around
Yeah,
something
it was a
like that.
reasonable
But
pathway. Okay, but it's
yep,
like a step closer to
yep.
like opening
Yep.
that
Yeah.
pipeline.
So
Cool.
basically, whereas before it would have been a conversation of like, you guys should really be thinking about Passpoint and doing all this other stuff. Now that that's checked off, they're in there. They're gonna, presumably start working towards implementing a technology stack that can support it. Yeah.
Cool. Super cool.
Yep. It's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's always nice to see all this stuff growing. And I think the funny thing for me is that, God, this is a horrible way to say it. There's a place I go every week for dry ice, for paleotry. So every Monday I go in there, I pick up dry ice to ship our packages, and I'm the one that almost always goes and gets the dry ice. It's nobody else in our enormous company of 4 people total. And so there's a lady there. She rings me up. She's super nice. Every time she's the same lady. Lee went there the other day for the first time in a long time and came back and she's like, "Holy shit, that lady's lost a ton of weight." I was like, "Oh, I didn't notice." And I didn't notice because I go there every week and you don't notice that stuff. I
Mm.
don't notice that stuff on a week to week basis. But if you go there every 6 months, you're like, fuck, there's been a ton of progress. And I think the same thing is true here is that you and I come here, pretty much every week. We get 1 or 2 weeks off a month, depending on some crazy schedule stuff. And so it's always like, no, this little thing happened and that little thing happened. And there's a little bit of progress here. But I'm guessing if someone comes in having not paid attention to anything for the past 6 months or year or 2 years or whatever, they're like, wow, there's been some pretty significant progress. And so
Mm.
it's always good to step back and
Yep.
see like, okay, this thing that we're a part of is moving forward. Pretty cool.
It's hard to keep track of this stuff even week to week. I had a moment yesterday. Mario shared a deck with me that he had shared with a carrier prospect, um, and it was all these screenshots and like tools that we've built. So it's like all the map layers, all of the carrier planning tools, like stuff. Some of this stuff's not public because it just doesn't matter for the community.
Yeah.
Um, but dude, boy, like in the, we talked about this transition where I sort of moved into Nova. All this stuff got built basically since then.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy to look back and realize how much we've cranked out on that front.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, should
And
I
then
congratulate you on your new position? Is that a big deal or is that like not a no? Okay. I should not.
no, it's a, yeah, just more stuff to do. Um,
uh,
the I think the other thing to touch on though is there's stuff happening on the lower WAN side. So I'll be in Barcelona next month.
okay.
So we had our Lower Alliance board meeting once a month. Last one was this last Thursday. I wake up at 7 a.m. and chat with those guys.
Yep.
Um, Next one will be in person. We've I've been doing sort of a bunch of conversations with a bunch of these member companies, trying to see if we can do some cool stuff there. Obviously, no promises, but it'll be good to be in person with all those folks. Keep moving the narrative forward. The thing that's most exciting to me is a lot of these folks that I'm talking to are entirely burned out on operating private networks.
Hmm.
They just want stuff to all work together. They want coverage where they don't have it. They want, everyone to sort of play nicely. So I think it's this sort of come to Jesus moment for LoRaWAN. So we've talked about ages and ages ago, LoRaWAN versus cellular, big usable public network versus, closed walls everywhere. It's the same story with Passpoint, right? Everyone has their own network, but nobody gets to use them. And so the more we can do to unify all that stuff, the more it makes it enticing as a business opportunity. So I think it'll be a really interesting conversation having all of those folks in the room saying, like, this is available, it's public access, you can go plug it in, I'll do it for you right now, kind of thing. Um, and
Yeah.
yeah, keep scaling from there.
That was a, and I think the other thing that I'm seeing in Lorwyn as I do more and more of these interviews is that not everybody knows all of these things exist. And there's two good examples of
Yep.
that. I think that not everybody knows the Glamos Walker exists, which is I think the tagline is the world's best LoRaWAN network tester. And those
Mhm.
of us in Helium know the Glamos exists because we used it to test antennas back in 2022, and that was super important. But I don't think that many folks in the rest of LoRaWAN world know that this thing exists and is super good for indoor testing and all the rest of it. So it's been fun to, you know, hopefully be a conduit to help Slavin build his business, and also just make the entire ecosystem better. And then the other thing I'm seeing is there's a siloing piece. I talked to this dude the other day for an interview. He started a LoRaWAN company recently, and as we're talking before the show, he's like, "Dude, I didn't know anything. I didn't know that Helium was a network. Like, I didn't know anything about it." And I was reading your LinkedIn profile and checked it out, and it looks pretty cool. I was like, "Dude, wait till you see the Explorer map. Like, let me show you just how cool it is." But I think there's a piece here where again we forget it because we're in the thick of it. But for professionals who probably initially dismissed helium as like some crypto fad, and so it just got pushed to the side, are now coming back and saying, "Holy shit, it is a big network, and it does have coverage where I am, and I can see that coverage in more or less real time." I think you told me is updated every 30 days, the Explorer map, or is it more than that, more frequent?
Every day.
Every day.
Uh,
Okay,
yeah,
every day.
the
So
the the demand layer is 30 days.
okay,
Observed demand layer. Yeah.
that's right.
Everything else is pretty much daily.
Yep. So it's like, that's pretty cool if you can look at that if you're a LoRaWAN pro and say, well, shit, there's already coverage there. Maybe you pop over and you test it with a tester real quick just to check. And now it's like, I don't have to deploy a gateway. Or if I deploy a gateway, I think something Miroslav said on his episode, which also hasn't released. God, I'm fucking behind on those things. He's like, dude, it's such a good backup. Is that sometimes there's enough hotspots that you can just use it as a primary, but you can almost always use it as a backup anywhere.
Yeah,
So
and I should correct the maps actually update in real time. So like the hotspot map, stuff like that. A couple of them are daily, and then yeah, so it's a bit of a mix, but
but it's pretty good
it's pretty
in
good.
general.
Yeah, where it needs to be real time, it's real time. Where it doesn't, it's not. So
Yeah.
make some decisions there. One of the things that I'll say about the Explorer too that I think drives home this idea of like, oh, I thought it was just a crypto thing, is like we made some really, really intentional product decisions in reworking for World, um, and namely with a heavy, heavy focus on talking about coverage and usage. And so you'll notice as you sort of look at these things and like parse them apart, proof of coverage is in there, but it's super downplayed. Like it doesn't get all this prominence. Like you made all these dollars and all that, stuff that the old ones used to do. And I think it was one of the things that I've always bemoaned as being lost is this story of data transfer. And so you'll see that as the front and center thing now. And it's more of this driving of like making sure you're deploying these in good, valuable locations, that you're filling coverage gaps on the IoT network, like whatever that is, helps to give a better picture and drive the community both to deploy around that story, but then also those other folks come in and see this as a network and not as a crypto thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's starting to play off.
Yeah.
Pay off. play out.
Play. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's an
Yeah.
interesting piece. I mean, it might be a good thing to know because you and I have talked a bunch. I know a little bit of your background, but you've got this long background in kind of making product stuff for people, making stuff work and making stuff beautiful. Whether it's a cabin in the woods, and I'm sorry about what happened with that. It wasn't my fucking fault, but sorry to hear that happen. Or just making things like work in real life on the internet. Um, can you, because you're helping, I mean, you're either helping or driving a lot of these changes. Can you talk me through like what you're thinking when you're working on this stuff and what's the most important thing to you as you're developing the way people interact with these products?
I'll say the hardest thing, but most important thing is, like what you were talking about earlier, like you and I are in it every week, every day, and we know all of the precedent and all the stuff that people need to understand, and separating ourselves from that and stepping into the shoes of somebody that just touched it for the first time. And the most important, most valuable thing is to go talk to those people, or to hand somebody their first hotspot and have them ask you like, you know, where do I get the app or like whatever that kind of thing is, right? But like just this morning, we're looking at the Helium Discord, and if I was a newcomer coming into that thing, I get hit with all these like Nova Labs roles, and there's like two Helium people, and we're like, where am I in the right place? Am I going to get scammed here? And so
Yeah.
I, I shared a message with Keenan and the community team, just being like, hey, should we rename this Nova role to just be Helium Developer or Helium Core or something like that? So at the end of the day, that's the role that it is, right? Like we were building the Helium network. There's the Helium Foundation, you can have the Helium Core team, but it's about testing that thing out. Obviously, the people who are here are going to be like, ah, that's weird. You just changed the names. But for the people coming in, those are the ones that matter. We have to grow that base of new users. Um, because if we just double down every single time and feature chase for all of the old people that we have, we will never scale.
Yeah.
And so that's where the IoT network excelled and grew because we reached all of those new people. Some 300,000 unique wallets had hotspots or something. I can't remember the exact number.
Yep.
But we need to see that 10 times over for the mobile network to reach, reasonable scale. Um, so
Yeah.
those are the goals that I have in mind. But
It's got to be built for the people who are using it. So I can see how that's, I wouldn't notice that changing over time, but I can also see like, all right, that's how it has to go. It has to be available for normal people to see, cool, maybe I know a little bit more about how this thing works. And also for professionals coming in to say, holy shit, these guys are sharing information that has never been shared before. And this is actually useful to my business in one way or another.
yeah,
So,
yeah, we are absolutely the most transparent telco thing out there, whether it's IoT or mobile. But also, I'll throw in a note, Siegfried. This is why I threw your stats off. But we will figure out a nice way to get them back in there. Um,
okay. Let's see. We had an earthquake in San Diego yesterday, day before, and I learned a couple things. One is that the government system to alert you of earthquakes, it gave me like, I don't know, like 3 to 5 seconds warning, which I thought was pretty good.
yeah.
I wouldn't expect it to be like, oh yeah, you're going to have an earthquake in 9 minutes. Um, but my phone, went off and I was like, oh shit, an earthquake. And then I felt the house start shaking. And this is the second thing I learned. I went to the doorway because when I was a kid, it's like, oh, stand in the doorway. That's the
Mhm.
safest place. And when I went down to the dry ice place later that day, I think it was later that day, I was like, hey, did you feel an earthquake? Like I got a doorway. And she was like, dude, that thing's a myth. Like that's not the safest place to stay. You got to get under a table. And I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I went and sat in my car and looked it up. I was like, oh no, she totally didn't know what you're talking about. She was right. A doorway is not the safest place to stand in an earthquake, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, right.
So
I guess I'm trying to think back to there was like a 92 earthquake in Humboldt that I remember being under a table for. Um,
I
there was
probably
also
should have just
one
gotten
where
under
like
my
I was out
desk,
in a,
but
I remember holding onto an apple tree once too. Apples falling all around me. But
damn, that's awesome.
yeah. Um,
He was like, hey, one hit
yeah.
me, just like give me some Newton insight. Um,
Right. Yeah.
let's see, 619. So funnily enough, Germ, I'm pretty sure he'd be okay with me saying this, loves earthquake sensor stuff and has earthquake sensors. And he's like, dude, I gotta have this one for like to measure the big earthquakes and the up and down. I gotta have this other one to measure like the left, right. He's I mean, completely unshockingly, Germ is pretty nerdy about that.
I think, yeah, when that one happened, I can't remember if he was on. Anyway, yeah, I saw times in the past, I think, or when he was in Slack, he'd be talking about it be a subduction or
Oh
whatever
yeah,
fault. Like
dude,
he
that,
knew
that
all that
guy's
stuff.
he's into it. Let's see. So Siegfried's talking about the. Uh, good God, how the fuck do I get these goddamn fucking text things better? It's fucking ridiculous that it doesn't that it doesn't do all my thinking for me, Joey. There we go. Maybe if I just
We
learn
need
how
an
to use the technology.
eCam
I'll be
AI.
yeah, yeah. Um, okay, hotspot owner roles and device users, no mobile hotspot. Keenan, immediately fix this.
I know. Well, like I think Keenan's in here.
Yeah,
Keenan's
yes.
on it. Otherwise, I'll screenshot him and harass him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, dude, stop telling me what to do. You're not the boss of me.
Yeah,
And then let's see, Travis,
that
desks are still the
that
best place for atomic bombs. 100%, Travis.
that's
Yeah.
refrigerators. Refrigerators is the. Yeah.
What did I change last time to
Sorry,
make?
that's my refrigerators is the Indiana Jones meme, right?
I missed it. What is it? Is it refrigerator's the best place to be for any of these events?
For an atomic bomb. He
Immediately
hides in the
climb into the
refrigerator,
fridge.
gets blown out. Yeah,
I can't see
yeah.
that Lee and I could both fit in the fridge.
Yeah,
Keenan, what
you
am
get
I
a big old
fixing?
walk-in, you're probably fine. Siegfried
Yeah.
wants a mobile hotspot owner role. Yeah, because we've got IoT owner, we've got IoT device user, but no mobile friends. Need more roles,
Yeah. More
more
roles. We need
more
more stuff,
badges.
Keenan.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see. I'll talk to Kevin about doing a nerd talk shot. For now, we'll just have to maybe just leave it on MetSci. That's the closest thing. Um, but I wanted to talk about this LLM spam thing because it's just been super fun for me to figure out and learn. So my personal email that I've had since God knows when on Gmail gets hit with spam all the time. In fact, I would say at this point, 98% of the email I get is spam. I would have thought that Gmail would filter all that out. It's like super obvious stuff. It'll say like, whatever, fuck pussy, hot cock, 2000, whatever the things are that I get targeted with. Or like, hey patriot, go buy this enormous knife to protect yourself from whatever. And it's stuff where it's like, dude, how do you not know that spam? There's like six emojis in the title, there's more emojis in the thing, there's these red lip emoji. Like it's clearly spam. But for whatever reason, Gmail's filters aren't filtering it. And I used to use this thing called SpamSieve, which did a pretty good job, but it did it at, and I think I'm using the correct terminology, the application layer. Like it did it on my mail app. So if I filtered it out on my home computer where mail is and SpamSieve was, it would filter out. But if I then went to my work computer or to my phone, it wouldn't filter it out there because it wasn't filtering it out at the Gmail piece.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, Travis, it depends on your industry what you're getting. In fact, I would love to see if the screenshot of what Travis gets because I know he's into crazy shit. Um, in any event, so I
Those are
get
the
all this stuff where
priority
it seems like,
inbox.
yeah, super obvious, and I was like, huh, could I? And I started doing something where I used Monstra, the machine back there, which is my local little LLM with a couple GPUs, to assess it, and it seemed like it was doing a pretty good job. And I was like, okay, well, I could just have Gmail send my email to Monstra first and get it classified as spam or not, and then send it back and wipe it. But it turns
Mm.
out that's a little bit harder than it needs. It's more you're overusing an LLM, and so that like I'll make a super like a 5 day or 7 day story much shorter. Is what I'm figuring out now is the first thing you do is you take 500 emails and you label them. So like spam, not spam. This thing from my sister, not spam. This thing from,
Mm.
fuckbot 2000, spam. This thing from crazy stiletto knife, spam. This thing from my mom, not spam. This thing from Joey, not spam. And you label, I think you have to label 300 or 400. And I was like, well, I'll just do 500 because if 300 is good, 500 that's got to be better. And then you use that to build some machine learning stuff. And then you use the machine learning to train a small fine tuned model. And once you have the small fine tuned model, that can run on any computer super fast because it's really scoped down to just email. And then I should have a fantastically good spam filtering system for any Gmail email. So,
Hmm. Yeah. I well, I use Superhuman as a email client
but
because
$30 a month, like fucking
so
A, just to get rid of spam. Does it work?
I think it's like 40 now or something. I don't know. I'm just like locked into it, so
Yeah.
used to it.
Yeah.
But they recently just did a thing where they took a bigger step on wrapping that AI in there. But I guess the reason I bring it up is it actually like API connects to Gmail, so it can read the email. It can like pull them without my intervention, tag them, and then actually like affect my Gmail inbox.
Which is
So I don't know if
nice.
there's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe like you like run a service and then it
Like
jumps
I
into your
thought about
email
this,
for you. But
but I think like what I would like to do with this, and I mean tech, and I think there's parts of that are funny. And it's like, hey, what kind of sites do you go to? But I think my guess is that I'm just getting targeted because I like to buy knives and guns, and certainly I'm a dude, and it's hard to not like hot chicks. And I think that's pretty reasonable for everybody out there. I'm sure my wife gets stuff that's like, oh, check out whatever this bra or this whatever the thing is that she might be interested in, which I think is the fantastically good upside of being tracked all over the internet. Is I'm not, at least I'm not being shown tampon commercials in my spam inbox. But I think in general, like if they know that I'm a 47-year-old dude living in San Diego, they probably know enough about me to send all these different pieces, and then I've looked at a gun site at least once. All that's out there. But the intent was with this, Joey, was I was like, I could probably build something that for a reasonably tech savvy person, and my dream is to build it so my dad could use it, which I don't think is
mm,
possible for me without significant effort. But just have like a kind of a 1 or 2 click integration where you're like, hey, I get that this is an app, made by some unknown developer. It can have access to my Gmail, and then I'll use this model on my computer locally, and it just cuts down spam. Because I don't think in a world of AI that spam is something that we need to tolerate.
yeah, it sucks. And like I'm looking at my what do I got? There's 300 and something emails in this inbox, 160 there, 140 there. I, three inboxes, just an endless stream of
Yeah, I
nonsense.
have the
I
same
said,
thing. Super, will save you a
yeah,
buck of your time per day. Yeah, I like it's
yeah,
crazy, Andy. I think about the time that I've put into building this spam bot. I don't think I'll ever get that time back in beating spam, but maybe if it's good for my mom and my dad. And I think this is the other crazy thing, um, is my mother's or my wife's mother is older. Her grandson, who's in his 30s or 20s, came over to her the other day to grandma and was like talking to her. And she's like, oh, yeah, I just got this bill. And he's like, let me see that bill. That sounds weird. She had from email scams, she was spending $1,000 a month on bullshit scams where it's like, hey, you didn't pay your water bill, or your cable is getting turned off, or your photos are compromised. You need to spend a fucking $1,000 a month in scams. And it would be pretty rad if I could go to her and be like, hey, grandma, put this thing on your thing, like push these 2 buttons. And that eliminates most of the crap that's getting through to her and saves her $1,000 a month. And I think that would be like a cool
yeah,
enough service that I wouldn't want to charge for it. Just like, hey, here's the code. Here's how to use it. Go.
right, yeah. You could take
Fucking
10% of the scam and then just pass the rest on.
yeah, yeah.
Have a
Like,
great
hey,
business
let
model.
me scam you for 10% less. I don't think I do that to my grandmother. That seems like to my mother-in-law. That doesn't seem like the right thing to do. We've got a pretty good relationship.
Yeah,
Uh, Tampons still useful if you get punched in the face. Yeah, I think if you get punched in the face a lot. Yeah, yeah. They're
try
good
not
for
to do
that.
that. Yeah.
Have you never had a tampon up your nose? No.
Mm-mm.
No, probably
Oh,
just as well. They
yeah.
absorb a lot of blood.
Yeah, well, it's their job.
Yeah, ask me how I know. Let's see, D Vaselina, what's new, dude? We covered what's new at the top of the show. Um, Although
Lots of
it's like
stuff.
endless what is new. I think that's the other crazy thing is I saw this other piece on AI, and I was talking about this in the AF thing on Discord.
Mm.
Is I used to use Cursor for everything, and I would just be pretty lazy and talk to the Cursor integrated AI. And there's some new stuff out there. And I was looking at my bank account. I'm like, dude, that thing's hitting my bank account every couple days for 20 more bucks. Like that turns out to be a lot of money if you do that more than a couple times. And
Mhm.
so there's other tools out there. I think ROO code, ROO code is one of them, where you can just
Hmm.
integrate an AI into your VS code. And then you see as you're making each request, that cost, a 500ths of a cent. This cost 2 cents. This cost 15 cents. And you see it as you go. It was pretty cool to play with that.
VS Code just added this natively. I don't think you have to pay anything for it. So do that. Uh,
I mean, I can't imagine that they can keep that up. Like you can't
well,
have free
they're owned
AI
by
calls.
Microsoft, so they're fine.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, maybe they
yeah,
can. Maybe old Bill's gonna subsidize that
yeah. We
for a
should
while.
talk a little bit on this SEC thing, and not so much like Helium's role in it, but I think
Hmm.
the bigger DePIN picture I think is
Yeah, yeah,
actually really important. Um,
does seem like a big deal.
so yeah, so obviously, disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not like actually reading this stuff. I'm not in the room. Um, but the really big takeaway here for me is the way that this got dismissed or is going to be dismissed. I think it's probably worth noting that that announcement in the press there was not the actual dismissal. So
Hmm.
still waiting on the final notes, but it's like secure enough. Everyone's agreed. The settlements are, handshaked. Um, but
Dismissed with
what
prejudice. Well, I thought that was really cool. It's like,
that's the one, yeah. And so like, a lot of folks aren't going to sort of pick up what that terminology means, but effectively the SEC cannot take this issue of hotspots or, deep in things being securities again. They are effectively saying like go off into the world and do these things and we're not going to bug you about it. So it really opens the doors, I think, for a lot of other DPINs to sort of go leverage this model without that risk of things going poorly. And so that's helpful from an investor standpoint. Like they can look at DePIN as a more stable sector. I think that's really exciting. Um, so it's going to be something that we see the play. This will play for a really long time, and hopefully we don't end up in some other sort of conundrum out of this. But um, uh, I don't know.
it is pretty cool, yeah,
That's
because that was up in the air. So that if I'm getting it right, then that means that any deepin can come in. It basically it makes the space more stable for new deepins to come in and say you can buy our thing. That thing can make you tokens, and that thing will not be classified as a security, so you're not going to be exposed to that risk.
yep.
Badass.
And other projects can start looking at uh, functionality on top of these things, like splitting rewards directly out of the entity. Like
Hmm.
used to be something that we looked at as being like, oh no, that's definitely like down the wrong path.
Yep,
But I think open some doors around thinking about that
it's rad.
additional stuff that you can do.
And I think it's worth it to note here that I'm pretty sure I've yet to meet a lawyer who works in the commercial setting who's like, yeah, I'll just do that for free. Don't worry about the fee. I'm guessing
None
that
of this is
cost,
free.
yeah, I'm guessing that costs
Mm,
both Foundation and Nova like more than $1 to do that by a lot.
yeah. Well, yeah, it's more than $1.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
that's another thing. Like I always go back. There's certainly some serious haters of Amir out there, and I count a couple of those among my friends. I think they're totally wrong about it, but that doesn't mean that we can't be friends. And Leo, I'm definitely talking about you there. I love Leo, and he's the most goddamn frustrating like fake Australian I've met. Because he'll just take the other side of something and be super strident about it. But I think it's important to have friends with different opinions. Um, I think from what I've seen of Amir and the Nova team, that they're like, hey, we want this thing to work. We're running a business. We're not running a popsicle stand. And this is going to take, in some cases, a shitload of effort, a shitload of money, and a shitload of risk. And some of those things are not going to work out. We're going to lose some stuff. We're going to screw some stuff up. And I think Frank talked about this early on with like, hey, we're just going to keep the plane in the air. You guys put the fires out. And I think the community didn't like that at all. But at the same time, with these projects, this thing's a three-legged stool. You lose the community, you're fucked, but you lose the business side of it, you're fucked. And you lose the demand side of it, or the supplier side of it, you're fucked. And you lose the demand side, you're fucked. So it's like you got to be able to balance all
Yep.
three of them and say, like, sometimes what is critical for one, like if we lose that leg, we lose the network. if we save that leg, the other leg will get some dings on it or some paint or some chunks out, but it'll remain standing. Like, okay, we're not going to lose the one leg, and we're going to take the hit on the others. I think that's pretty important to see. I love Leo.
Yeah.
Come on, Keenan. He's
I I'm fine.
yeah,
I like Leo too.
yeah.
But one thing I'll say that
He can be
I've
tiresome
come
though.
to really, yeah, he's a little hard, a little rough. Um, uh, but like I've seen Amir time and time again really double down on trying to make the right decisions for the ecosystem, for the network, for the people operating on it. Um, really put together like a morally strong team.
Yeah,
Nova and Foundation both had very strong rules around trading. Announce, pre-plan, schedule, all that sort of stuff that you would do in a big publicly traded company without those rules sort of being cast down on us. Like we just take those rules. Um, and so like when, a bunch of these folks on the team have insider knowledge on upcoming announcements and all of that stuff, and you're not seeing those folks going and trading on that knowledge, which I think unfortunately witnessed with some other projects making announcements. You see big market activity in the hours
that's
leading up to it.
impossible.
It's just
No
like,
one would ever
which
do
is
that.
just like so disappointing. Like you just want to
Yeah.
see people win, and like it's like, man, you really abuse your community that way. Um, so I have a lot of appreciation for the structure. Like obviously you can never get every single decision and direction
No,
right,
of
but I've
course
always
not.
seen them to be in the sort of broader best interest.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's 100% right. Yeah. Joe, fuck, I did not see this comment coming from you. Joe.
Me either. Yeah.
Damn, dog, I'm impressed. Hell yeah. Hell yeah, dude. I love that. That's fucking
Make next
amazing.
day.
Good work,
Yeah.
dude. Yeah. Yeah. That's I think that's totally right. And Amir's a funny troll. Um, yeah. And I think there's another piece where it's like, you're a fucking helium fanboy. Like, yeah, I think it's a super cool thing. I think they'd have a hard time doing anything wrong in the big picture for me. And I also don't see anything, and we can talk about other stuff if this becomes unpleasant or uncomfortable or something you can't talk about. I don't see any other way that they could have done what they did in these past 3 months, um, and done a better way. Like it's always easy to be like, oh, they should have done this one thing this other way. And if I was running the whole thing, I would have done this that way. But it's like, I bet you wouldn't have. I bet if you had access to all the information that goes down, you would have made a different decision. And this is something I talk about all the time in my long talks about politics with my family, who's basically on the other side of the fence than me, is they'll be upset about something. I'm like, I bet you don't have as much information as this political figure or that person. And so because you don't have the information, it's much more difficult to make a totally informed decision. I think the same thing is, yeah,
Yeah.
is true here.
I mean, I think I made this comment to a friend about some political thing the other day, and it's like, turns out these things are complicated.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
As it turns
doesn't
out,
doesn't
fucking
tend to
Joe with a
wrap up in a
sensibility.
title. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Headlines don't tell you everything, but
Yeah.
um, yeah.
I like this new Joe, and I think this is right. And I think this also applies to Leo's. I don't always like his decisions, but I haven't seen him be totally wrong on stuff, and he'll call out stuff that I think needs to be addressed, and he does a really good job about calling it out.
I mean,
Maybe
for what
too
it's
good of
worth,
a
I'm
job.
still waiting to see the massive expansion of AU915 devices in Australia.
Oh shit! Here comes the
So,
fucking just. Mm.
if I'm gonna drop one, that's gonna be
Oh, I'll
that.
fucking hear about this from Leo later. Like, hey, I
I'm
fucking
sure
said I
I will
like you.
too.
I like your
Sorry,
work.
Leo.
God damn it! Don't fucking come after me.
Yeah, made enough noise about it,
Yeah.
and still nothing.
I think there's an interesting piece in the LoRaWAN side. What I'm seeing is a little bit of uncertainty in the general LoRaWAN piece about what's going to happen with LoRaWAN and with this fight with, or whatever, this battle with Mioty that's
Hmm.
coming up, where folks are like, hey, LoRaWAN's working for us. I mean, it's a kind of a weird thing where like it's working for us. We're building a business on it, but we're hearing about what's going on with Mioty and how it should be better or whatever. They're basically just doing a better job of marketing.
Yeah,
LoRaWAN needs to make sure that they're spreading the word and putting the putting the word out and being super clear about what's happening. And I think Alper's been better. Alper Yagan is the CEO of the LoRa
Correct.
Alliance. He's been better about this than has been done in the past. But I'm also curious, like from your insider trading knowledge on the LoRa Alliance, what's getting thought about there?
Yeah. I mean, Myote solves a bunch of problems that nobody has. Is
Okay,
maybe my best summary of what's going on there. It's like, oh, you can run millions of devices instead of hundreds of thousands of devices. Well, where's the millions of devices?
right.
Um, so it does something. It does this sort of frequency hopping thing that LRFHSS does on LoRaWAN. Like the stuff exists. It's a solved problem. It is beautiful, wonderful marketing. It's an exciting new, like interesting thing. Realistically, it's a tiny percentage of the overall ecosystem. So while it's the shiny looking one and it's the new one, it's interesting. It's a
Okay,
lot of discussion out of that. Um, it's it's one of those like threats on the horizon. It's not really like the threat in the room with us. Um,
okay,
so I've been really excited to see Alper turning the lower lines around. He is boots on the ground. He's at the events. He's having discussions with people. I have an hour with him booked on Monday. Like we're gonna get into some stuff. Um, so I've been really happy with his approach here. He is deeply passionate about driving this protocol forward. Like
yeah, he gives a shit.
he knows it'll change the course of, the future and industry and humanity. Like that's his approach here. Um,
Yeah, that's
so
pretty rad.
he's going to keep doing what it takes to make that happen. Finding the right people to tell the story is always a challenge. It's one of the things that I'm really excited about for the foundation to be able to sponsor your podcast. Plug, go
Go check out the Metsai.
metsci.show, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um,
And I don't know if that was the
so
right
yeah,
call to use that as a URL because everyone's so used to .com. But when I saw the .show, I'm like, well, that's perfect. That's what it should be.
everyone uses links anyway. So
Yeah,
if you can type it easy, that's what matters.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think there's a lot more. Like obviously, that's the next step. The what's on the horizon is what more needs to be done there.
Hmm.
Um, I've I've been slow on this. I've been talking with the IoT working group about it, but I want to see like really robust educational tools for somebody to get in and try this stuff out. We've
Yeah,
got the fantastic foundation for this, and we just need to get it over the line. And we just need somebody that's a really good education writer, documentarian to get in there and do it. Um, there's more to do on projects, show people what they can build, like engage YouTubers, like all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
And so it's one of the things we'll keep working on as a working group and as a foundation and as a ecosystem. But it takes everyone. Like we can't be the like half dozen people driving that all the time.
yeah,
Um, so it's
yeah,
like if you see cool stuff, like cue them into the grant process, get them engaged, like help them write something up. Like
yeah, yeah. No,
we'll make it happen.
I told Larry, I was like, hey, dude, if you want to come back to write another grant or you want to improve your grant, like, let me know. I think I can get your grant where you present it and you do a good job. Um, but yeah, I'll help. If anyone has a grant that they want to present to the Helium Foundation, you're welcome to reach out to me. I believe I've gotten more grants than anyone else. I'm pretty fucking successful with it. I've also not gotten grants, so it's not like I'm perfect, but I'm pretty sure I can help you get whatever you're doing across the line, or tell you like, hey, they're never going to do that. Don't waste your time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, and like to what it's you know, to the point, like it's added a lot of value to the ecosystem and raised a
yeah,
lot of visibility. We do this show. I think at one point was a funded thing. I can't even remember.
I don't
But
think State
yeah,
of the Networks ever got funded directly. The Grant King. Yeah, yeah, I like that, Keenan. God, fucking
okay,
ego is
yeah.
such a goddamn dangerous thing. Yeah, yeah. No, I don't think the
Yeah.
show ever got funded.
Okay,
Max and I had a contract with Foundation to do some governance stuff
that's
when
right.
Valerie was there.
Yeah.
And that was, geez, a
Yeah.
year and a half, 2 years ago. Um,
Yeah.
hey, the last thing I've got, and this is just like nerd stuff, that's just kind of fun. Oh fuck, it's not on my desk. Is I watched this, and because Joe's here, I watched this video on networking a couple weeks ago, and it was this guy Don from True Cable, and he said this quote. He's like, "If you don't have a Keystone jack on one end of an Ethernet cable, this is literally that is quote, that is an exceedingly bad idea. And I was like, that guy knows what he's talking about. I must have been doing it wrong for the past 3 years. I'm going to go out and I bought the Keystone jacks and the fucking tools and the rest of it. And I started like switching my stuff over so that they're Keystone jacks in a patch panel in my Ethernet stuff. Did I talk about this last week, Joey?
No, no. I'm
So I,
curious where this is going to go
so
because I
I
don't do
put it
that.
together. Let's see if I can do a little quick demo. Hang on.
Well, you got to tell people what a Keystone Jack is.
There you go. And I got my Mets shirt on. Um, so this is a Keystone jack, one of these things, and all the wires go into it versus like a regular, I think RJ 45 cable. So like what we're all
Yep.
used to. And this guy, if I understood it right, was saying that if you use the regular RJ45 piece, motherfucker, focus. Um, it was worse if you had that at both ends for some like shielding weirdo thing. And I was like, that guy knows what he's talking about. I'm going to go do it. And I started to do it. And it's fun. It's always fun to learn a new thing. It's always fun to buy new tools. I'm a fucking sucker for new tools. But I came to the conclusion that that guy just did a really good job selling me. And I didn't know what I was doing. And I bought like $300 worth of shit just to like make my patch panel look nicer. And the only place it makes a difference is if you have shielded cable and you need to ground it. Then a
Mm.
patch panel. And like he was saying that there's some, maybe Joe can tell me if I'm wrong. In here, in the Keystone jacks, there's some like PCB little board that somehow manages the fucking data transfer shielding, blah, 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 electromagnetic something or other that makes it safer, better, whatever. Um, but yeah. So I spent like time improving my network to make it professional quality for basically no fucking reason.
Hmm.
Keystone jacks on both. Like the other thing I found was that with this kind of thing, you can put the Keystone jack in the wall, and so like I've got cable run all over my house, one to the laundry room and one to the garage for sure. That I'm always like unplugging and replugging, or I'll change something. Not always, but a couple times a month, I'll be like, oh, let me try this new thing. And for that
Yeah.
application, that would actually be probably like the better move is if there's a Keystone jack in the wall and you just plug straight into that versus
Yeah.
unplugging the direct cable. But yeah.
See, I think I've been so sort of like we grew up in the 90s, so we were always like, oh, bad audio cables, bad connections, like having to blow the N64 cartridge or whatever. Like to me, anytime there's a connector between the thing and the thing, it's like bad.
It's worse. That's
And
what I
so,
thought too. Yeah, yeah. I was like
yeah,
eliminating that. I'm like, I will go directly, patch cable that's like whatever, 50 feet long, directly from the switch to
yeah,
the device.
slap a
But
little service loop in there and you're good forever. So,
apparently that's wrong.
yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, you've got fancy people
Huh.
doing it. I'm doing it myself.
Yeah.
What's the
I don't
oceanfront
think I'm
property?
gonna go throw biscuit things all over the place, but I'm gonna
What's
keep
a
my service loops going.
biscuit jack? Fuck, there's so much to
That's
goddamn learn.
so I just Googled it. It's like when you have to like that little thing that would come up out of your floor and you'd plug your phone jack into it to like bolt to the wall. It wasn't in the wall.
Okay, yeah, yep.
I've got those all over my house and they're all dead. But like
Yeah.
that's a it's the little biscuit and you plug into it and then the wires go.
Huh. I
You,
did buy
you
a
can
bunch of
Google it,
these
biscuit.
patch panels or patch cables because I was like, I'm gonna make
Those are
my
pretty.
switch look super cool. I don't. It fucking doesn't matter. Like it's fun. I'm gonna do it. I want to make it look better. I always like doing nice things well, and I love learning. But I don't think it makes a goddamn bit of difference.
Sorry. Yeah.
So there's that. I learned that I got suckered by Don at True Cable. I mean, and not to Don's discredit, he did a good job selling me.
Oh no, you got the slim kit. Those are bad.
Come
Oh
on,
man, we got to
Joe.
get Joe
Fucking
on
don't
here
tell
and
me
tell
this.
us what to do.
It says. Put my goddamn
They're
glasses
shielded
on,
and
Joe.
stuff, right?
It says
Yeah.
it's like 6A or something. They should be good. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Hopefully
Fun.
it's not
Yeah.
bad.
Learn. There's always something that man, this is why the trades are important, right? Like I wish I my most jealous that dirty jobs guy goes
Mike
out and
Rowe.
just does jobs. Yeah. He just
Yeah.
gets in there and gets to do the job for a couple of days and then go home. Like I would love to go be like a lineman for 3 months, just learn that thing at some level, right? So I could go deeper and go be a locksmith, go like be a sewer plumber for the city or something. Like there's all these little layers of super deep knowledge that we just don't get to touch.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Anyway,
and that's the nice thing I think about the podcast for me about this stuff in general is like it gives me license to go deep on at least one thing and know one more thing about the world that I wouldn't otherwise have known. So Micro at Dirty Jobs went out to my buddy's camel farm here in San Diego, the Oasis Camel Dairy, and spent I think a couple days with them and shot a piece with them. So I'm sure you
Hmm,
can Google it somewhere and look it up. And Gil and Nancy at the camel farm said that dude was like the nicest, most approachable, like exactly how he appears on camera. Dude, they've
that's
met. It's
great.
like that guy was awesome.
I
So
don't want to think about a camel farm though, or camel milk. That's weird for
it's
me.
super good. Super good. Well, Lee worked on the largest camel farm in the world. That's part of her background. So we got the camel
Right,
connection.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I know. That's a little wild for me.
She just walked in. Now she doesn't want to be in the picture, so she's throwing my laundry on the fucking table. Because she just did it. I'm
All
sure I'll
right.
get crap about that. All right, buddy.
Well, that's probably your cue then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm getting called. I'm sure you're getting called too. Joey, good to see you. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for everybody for being here. Hit the like button, I guess. I mean, do whatever the fuck you want. I'm going to do this show no matter what. And your aunt was a
Yeah.
lineman, Travis. Well, and on that happy note, I will see you probably next week. Thanks, buddy.
Later.
We're out.